Have a roll call vote. Aniskevich?
Here.
Costa's not here yet. Krabs?
Here.
Elton?
Hey,
Present.
how you doing? All right.
Hawkins?
Here.
Peebles?
Here.
Weems? Boyd is here. Costa? Costa's here. Yep. Awesome. Right, I'd like to make a motion to accept the meetings from last minutes. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Awesome. Now I'll read our purpose statement for the Akron Citizens Police Oversight Board. The overarching mission of the Akron Citizens Police Oversight Board is to foster conditions and police practices that ensure the safety of all residents of the city of Akron. The CPOB is empowered by a new city charter provision to independently direct the police auditor whose office reviews investigations into complaints and misconduct involving officers. The board and the auditor also review every standard investigation, whether by the Akron Police Department or outside agencies, into the use of deadly force by an officer. Our values are as follows. Our decisions and actions are motivated by our love for Akron and our desire for all to feel safe in the community. We value unity in voice and action. We respect each other and those we serve. We seek to build relationships of trust, and we seek always to conduct ourselves with integrity. We listen to understand, learn, and lead. We strive to be inclusive of all stakeholders' voices. We value change at a system level. We hold ourselves accountable for our actions and deeds, and we hold our partners and those we serve to be accountable to their actions and deeds as well. So at this time, Ms. Aniskevich, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, time for public comment, and we have Ms. Lee Holden, please.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I have to confess that I have not carefully studied all 184 pages of today's packet, but I've studied some of it. And I find the information there encouraging and useful. There's evidence of dialogue between the city's administration and the Office of the Independent Police Auditor. And I know from recent committee meetings of this board that regular meetings of all parties are occurring, and I take heart from that. The auditor's report also offers a useful glimpse, not the full picture, but a glimpse of the current state of policing in Akron, as well as opportunities for its improvement. An example is case 2026-646. The incident took place on January 2nd, and the report is dated February 24th. And that fact alone is cause for celebration, because the gap between incidents and audit reports used to be many months, and now it's a matter of weeks. Many of the reports in the packet had a gap of only 4 to 6 weeks. As usual, the auditor's report is factual, legally grounded, and thorough. He found in this case that I mentioned that the use of force in this incident was objectively reasonable and found no policy violations. He then went on to identify systemic considerations regarding inherent risks associated with foot pursuits in particular environments, possible delays in pursuit related to taser use, and opportunities for more precise explanations of and rationales for police activity. And he included several recommendations to support broader organizational learning, officer safety, and constitutional policing outcomes. Implementing these recommendations would, in my opinion, increase transparency and public trust. Every profession worthy of being considered a profession requires continuous quality improvement because there's always room for improvement in every human endeavor. The auditor's report provides solid information about specific ways of improving policing. I believe that if Akron Police Department officers, supervisors, and leaders study this report and all the reports generated by the auditor and deputy auditor, and then systematically implement the recommendations in these reports, that we, the public, will see continuous quality improvement of policing in Akron, one of the desired results of Issue 10. I encourage citizens, community members, advocates to study these reports. They are publicly available, and the transparency they offer is an important tool for improving policing in Akron, if we will only use it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And we appreciate, and I'm sure our auditor appreciates, that you appreciate the work, the hard work that he's been doing, because he has been working hard, and he is very thorough. And, you know, I know that, I think I speak for all, the entire board, we're very satisfied with his work. It's not skewed towards one, you know, one side or the other. He just does good, honest work. And what falls out, falls out. So thank you so much for that. Is there anyone else who wanted to give public comment who did not fill out a form? Okay, we will move on then to number 6, auditor report. Is he on Zoom, Keisha?
Can you hear me? Just give me a second. I'm having a little computer problem. Give me,
Thank
if
you.
you can move on to maybe the next item, give me a few minutes.
Okay, all right, we'll skip the auditor report and go down to governance. Community engagement?
Yeah, I think he was going to tackle governance as well to talk about the annual report. So I'll go straight into community engagement.
Okay,
So there was a community forum that took place on February 19th at Ed Davis that was sponsored by Council President Margot Somerville, Councilwoman Davis, and Councilman at Large, Mr. Garrett. I was unable to actually attend that forum. I'm not sure if anyone know. So board member Ms. Bernie Hawkins attended. I don't know if you wanted to make any comments or any observations from what you may have witnessed.
I can't remember the exact, like some of the exact information, but it was well attended by the community, people from all sides of town, as well as a lot of community leaders were there.
Oh, okay.
And retired officer,
see, I'm sorry, we can't hear you.
oh, I'm sorry.
Can you speak into your mic? Thank
Okay.
you.
Can you hear me now? Okay. There was a speaker there that was a retired police officer from the Akron Police Department, and he kind of just spoke to the community and took questions and answers that gave them a lot more information. I could see him as plain as day, but I can't call his name. But which it was a calm meeting, and it was like a lot of different information, and different people talked about different things that were going on at each center in the city.
Okay. And I'm sure they may have tackled some of the things that were addressed in the previous meeting, which was a lot of the use of force settlements. I know that was something that was a lengthy conversation in prior forums, in addition to the Akron Police Department budget. And, you know, there were some questions raised that would lean towards more accountability, such as addressing head strikes. Here he is here. Officer head strikes on low-level offenses, body-worn camera, an automated longer look-back period, and APD having AR-15 rifles, APD refraining from high-speed pursuits, and this board specifically having more meaningful disciplinary having, extending the disciplinary action misconduct from 120 days to 365 days. That was also something that was discussed in prior forums. And extending park and walks to include the weekends and specifically football games that happen in the community. So I know those were things. Oh, and then there was also a call for Officer Fields and Officer Simcox to be fired in both forums as well. So speaking of forums, there's another forum coming up that actually Chairman Boyd brought to our attention. Leadership Akron is hosting a forum on April 2nd, and it's pretty much going to be all day. I went ahead and registered. I'm hoping that some board members can come out. It'll be from 9 a.m. to 3:30, so you can come really anytime in between those times. I'll get there at 9. I'll be there all day. So if you just can only stay an hour, 2-hour time block, that's fine. But it'll be a good way for us to disseminate information about this board and also to try to solicit some board membership. So it's a good opportunity. The purpose of this forum essentially is to connect with potential candidates and conduct interviews. You can conduct interviews during the forum and, just really network and things of that nature. Chairman Board, I don't know if you've participated in the past. I don't know if you want to speak to your previous experience with it.
Yeah, it's a Leadership Akron hosts different, if you know anything about Leadership Akron, they host different like programs and classes. So this is specifically for the Diversity on Board class. And so I think it's going to be a really great way for us, first of all, to get more information out about our board, but also the auditor's office. But also, I think it's going to be a great opportunity for us to possibly solicit other board members and to, if nothing else, kind of build a roster of applicants. So that way, if, life comes up and somebody has to step away or step off, we can have a roster of different applicants because they know exactly what this is about. And so I know that I will be there because we'll be doing one for Love Akron, but also I'll be there representing our board here. And I think they have a morning and a afternoon session, so we'll be there in the morning. And they always do a really great job, so we're super, super excited about that. If I can also touch on, as we're talking about community engagement, I know yesterday were budget hearings for the mayor's office, public safety, fire department, police department. And what I can tell you from the mayor's office to public safety with Mr. Morgan, but also Police Chief Brian Harding, everybody mentioned the circles that our auditor's department was able to lead. So I thought that was really good and encouraging that each layer mentioned how well the circles went and the opportunity. So, kudos to you, Ms. Myers, and your leadership there to really help to spearhead that with Project Ujima, and also for our board members who participated as well. The acknowledgement, I think, from Chief Harding, the police department, Mr. Morgan, but also the mayor's office. I think that shows really what it is that we're able to do as a board when it comes to how we engage the community from an educational perspective, but also it shows our efforts to be very collaborative when we work with our partners, and the police department are our partners in this. So really good, and again, just thank you, Ms. Myers, for your leadership there.
So one additional thing I would like to mention that the NAACP is sponsoring a virtual training that will be presented by attorney Carlton T. Mayers on April 4th from 2:30 to 5:30 p.m. And the topic of discussion for that will be police drones, AI recognition, and essentially how to use tools that will enhance accountability and community-led oversight strategies. So, turning kind of data into policy to stop harmful surveillance. So just want to make mention of that. I have a flyer here that I'll kind of pass around. If anyone here is interested in registering for it, it is completely free. And again, it is online. So that is a Saturday, April 4th, from 2:30 to 5 p.m.
Awesome. Ms. Anastasia?
Yes, where is, I was reading this about the diversity on board class. Sounds really interesting, but it doesn't state where it's located, where it's going to be.
Oh, the workshop?
Yes, where is it going to be held?
526 South Main Street. I'm not sure at the Bounce Innovation Hub.
So down there by the
I've never
spaghetti
been there,
warehouse.
but not too far from
Like it's a
here.
little bit past the
Yeah.
spaghetti warehouse.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
newly renovated, it's newly renovated
Okay, yeah.
inside. Where the people who came in met with us down there.
Yep.
Is it upstairs in that same area, or?
I'm not
There's
for
a
sure,
lot
but
of
I'm sure when you
offices
walk in.
in that building.
Yeah. I'm sure when you walk in, the leadership Akron always has some way to direct, so, yep,
Yeah, they should put that address on the
okay.
announcement here, because it's not on there.
Yeah, I was able, when I registered, it gave that information. So yes, at the Bounce Innovation Hub.
And it's all day, 9 to 3?
Essentially, you had the option to register for a morning session or afternoon. I just registered for both, just to give board members an opportunity. Some board members may be able to come in the morning, some may not, so.
I know I'll be there in the morning, so,
I'll be there. I work in there anyway, so,
okay,
yeah.
awesome. Is that all from community engagement, Ms. Myers?
Yes.
Awesome, thank you so much. I'm gonna move on and come back to our order if that's okay and go with finance. Anything, Mr. Costa?
No updates on my end, but I do want to turn it over to you to see if there's any updates. I wasn't able to attend the budget hearings yesterday, but wanted to invite you to share out if there's any
That's-
additions.
Yeah, we had our hearing yesterday, and I thought everything went really good. I appreciate Mr. Costa and also Ms. Fennell. Our presentation was well put together. I thought we spoke well from, if you will, some of the high-level things that were going on. There were 4 key areas that we felt was increasing our budget. If you remember, we passed a budget of about $838,000, which is about $200, I believe, and $10,000 more than what the city. And so I'll let, if you will, Anthony kind of talk about the logistics, even though we already talked about it. We already spoke about it at our meeting. But I will say, when we brought up the stipend increase for board members, there was, I think, a little bit of pushback, but I think it was encouragement that our mayor stood up and endorsed our increase, and we proposed an increase of $500 per meeting per board members. I know Councilwoman Amobian and also Councilperson Fran and also Councilwoman Davis, I felt like was in support of that. So we'll see how that leans out. But I thought we presented who we were very, very well, and why the bump in the increase is necessary. And it's really necessary for the sustainability of this board. I know for myself and Ms. Anaskevich and Peoples and Mr. Costa, our time is up, will be 2027. So we want to make sure that the board is, if you will, moving along as it should be after we step away and leave. And one of the things that I think that we've seen, and Ms. Anaskevich has been an advocate for this now, I would say for the past 2-3 years, is that we're working more than just being around this horseshoe once a month. There's a lot that are going on from a committee perspective, but also not even serving from a committee perspective, but each and every one of us go to ward meetings. We've spoken at ward meetings. We're meeting, whether it's with the mayor's office, a public safety director, police chief, deputy chiefs, or we're taking phone calls. So there's more work that is happening outside this horseshoe. And we just want to make sure that we presented that well, and I believe that we did yesterday. And so, Mr. Costa, I feel like it went well. It was received and accepted. And so, yeah, we feel really good about that.
So when will we know anything?
We won't know until they vote on the whole budget. So I would think, what do you think, Mr. Morgan? Probably a couple of weeks? Yeah, it's probably gonna be a couple of weeks, because I know they had hearings today, they'll have them again tomorrow. And then I would think probably within the next two, I would say probably council meetings when they vote on it. So we're probably looking at, I would say maybe after Easter possibly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can I ask another question?
Please.
Curious, what was the rationale for the pushback that you did get? What rationale? What was the rationale?
Some of the rationale was just like, hey, Chairman Board, you're asking for like a 400% raise. And, the comment was no city employees asking for that. And I said, well, here's the thing, we're not city employees. And so I said, but the effort and the work that we've been doing has really been a heavy lift. And I took them back to our first year and a half. I said, in our first year and a half, we were meeting every week anyway, so you were giving us $400 a month because you were giving us $100. So I said, if you look at it, this is not unprecedented. And I said, we're probably doing more work now than we were even then, even though we were trying to pretty much build the plane while we were flying it, so to speak. And so I felt like we represented ourselves well, but that was just some of the, and then of course they put us in a group with every other, if you will, commission. And, it's like, well, hey, if we do this for you all, we got to do it for everybody else. And I said, well, no, you don't. Not
No,
everybody.
because everyone else is getting a paycheck every 2 weeks.
Yeah, and so, well, they're talking about other boards and other commissions of the city. And I said, well, I think we're a little bit different, and that's not a slight on other boards, other commissions within our city, but I think this one is a very unique one.
Okay.
I would like to add that I did share after the presentation, I did share some additional documents to all the city council members. And the one document that I did share with them was the rationale behind the increase and why it made sense because of the type of board that you guys are and the type of work that you do behind the scenes and between meetings, and in addition to this monthly meeting. So whether they accept that or not, or whether that sways those that still have some pause for the increase, I think it shows that this is not just something that someone is asking for, that is well thought out, that there is, again, data to support it, and that the work that you do, and that it also is something that is done in many other cities across the country. So they can get that analysis. So it's not just an ask out of the blue.
And so, and again, I think that the work that Mr. Costa, Mr. Fennell did with Mr. Fricker was well done. I thought we were super prepared. In our presentation, we was able to also celebrate some of our wins on the years past. We spoke about how we onboarded 3 new board members. We completed another annual report that I thought was really well done. But also, we have been able, through our auditor and our independent police auditor, they reviewed 310 use of force, right? And they concurred on just over 90% of them.
Yes.
So that's a lot. And 2, the next thing is, for the originals that were here from the beginning, we realize and know how behind those reviews were when we first came on. And now you're talking about our review process, and what Mr. Fennell and Ms. Myers have been able to do is, we're current. And I think Leah spoke to that as well in her public comment. So we're up to date, and I think that's because of the diligence of our independent auditor department. And so I think that tells some of the wins and some of the progress that we've made. I know it's taken us a long time to get here, but I just continue to want to thank this board for your diligence and your faithfulness to continue to grow up and serve in spite of some of the challenges that we've faced. So thank you. Are there any questions?
Just one. Do you feel that the report was well received?
I do, absolutely. I mean,
Yes.
What about you, Mr. Fennell?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Even with what we call pushback, it wasn't really pushback on the quality of what we have accomplished together as a board and as an office. It was no question about that type of work and the need. I did not feel. There were some questions about some of the larger asks, obviously, and that's to be expected. If I could show this real quick so that for those that weren't there, I'll try to share real quick. Just let me know if you can see this on the screen. Is that, what do you look
Yes,
at?
yes.
Well, no, that's not the screen I wanted to share. Let me see here. Let me pull it. First, let me pull it up, right? Okay, there we go. There we go. All right. Now, let me do the share part. This technology is something else. We're going to get there, though. It's still showing that? Huh. Well, let me try this. What I want to show is what the committee, what they saw. Anyway, I wanted to show the four
Would you be able to
points.
email it to the board members, Anthony?
Yes, yeah, I definitely can do that. I wanted to show the four key points that were different from really different from what the city was proposing. And so we weren't that far off from that. But it boils down to we talked about the stipend, and there was also a small increase in our dues and memberships. There's a small increase of $500 difference. But then it came into the special projects, which encompasses the subject matter experts that I would like to use for the special services agreements as we look into the officer involved shootings that we anticipate we'll be reviewing this year. And we anticipate between 3 and 4, and why we needed the money that we needed. And then also the money for the case management system. And we had to remind them that that money, although it was allocated last year, because of procedural issues and administrative issues, we never got a chance to access that or secure a vendor. So it really wasn't an additional ask. It was the same ask from last year. And we explained that. And then also with our data analysts and the training that Ms. Myers and I will receive from the data analysts should that monies be awarded. And the fact that training, once we complete that training, we'll be able to maintain the dashboard and not have to pay someone to do it. So it's actually an investment so that we don't have to have an ongoing outside person to maintain that dashboard. And we'll know how to do it and know how to make sure that the information contained in that dashboard is current and accurate. So, we were able to explain those things. And once they asked the questions and we explained it, that it did not seem like that was too much of an issue.
Thank you, Mr. Fennell. Any other comments or questions? All right. Anything human resource wise we need to touch on, go over?
Well, I just want to update everyone that we do have a start date for our seasonal college intern, and pending that person getting all the paperwork and pre-employment stuff done, we expect that to be April 13th. Would like to thank those that after our committee meeting last week, there were calls and emails made, and I started getting calls the next morning from HR and assuring me that we were moving forward in that process. So I want to thank those that reached out, and so we're there. And as soon as that person is on board, I will definitely announce that. So we expect it by our next board meeting.
Thank you, Miss. Oh, go ahead, Ms.
Yeah, I just had a question. So Katie's replacement, are we waiting until after this April 2nd
No, so thank you for asking that, because, good. So the application closes this Friday. When I talked to Madam President Somerville, she informed me that there was a real strong candidate that they felt really good about. So I'm glad they feel good about it. So that makes me excited. And so, but it closes this Friday, so I'm sure we're probably gonna know something, maybe, we're gonna know something by next week.
Okay, and is it just one candidate then?
Yes,
One person?
yes,
So that person has no competition?
no.
Okay. I guess that's the best job to go for when you don't have any competition.
Well, I think though, too, Ms. Aniskevich, to the point that you've made, it's a lot of work for a very small percentage of cost. So we understand that we're here to serve the city, but it also takes a lot to do what we do to be a part of this board. And so I think that's another thing, as we talked about, and that was a part of our discussion yesterday. When you look at it, we don't have a bench. There's no applicants that we can go to if any one of us step off. There's not a folder
Binders, no binders.
with names to pull from. So, I think that's a challenge
It is.
for us, yeah.
So have you met this person? Has anyone?
I have not. Remember, it's a council pick, so council doesn't want us involved, so I
Gotcha.
have not.
Okay.
The mayor's office didn't mind us being involved. Yeah. Also, I just want to make sure everybody's aware, usually you would see Tony Ingram here, he was our liaison. Now it's probably going to be Mr. Craig Morrison, who is the Director of Public Safety. I know that we've had several good conversations and meetings about just how we want to continue to work together and how things will evolve as far as when Mr. Fennell turns in a recommendation and how that's going to look. So he's a part of helping setting up some systems so they run a little bit smoother and better. And so, Mr. Morgan, thank you so much for just wanting to meet, but also seeing some of the challenges and trying to be a help so that those challenges lessen or decrease. I didn't know if you want to say anything to the board, in words?
Yeah, thank you. No, I really appreciate it. Since transitioning from the prosecutor's office, I've had an opportunity to start setting up some good meetings with the auditors, really getting some organization and structure to how we respond. We really want to, I really want to let the police focus. As you mentioned, there's so few moments in which the auditor's office and the police department dissent, with a complaint finding or a use of force finding. And I think it's critical to let the police really have the capacity to dig into those ones where they dissent, where there is a dissent, because I want them to take the opportunity to look at those with the perspective of the auditors, take those into account. That doesn't mean the findings will always change, but I think sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. But I think, again, letting them go through the process of looking at it from a different perspective, I think that's critical. And then the three of us are working on really distilling down a series of recommendations that were made with concurrent opinions. And again, I may have mentioned it previously, the report that I'm going to send the auditors, a lot of this stuff is part of our normal operations, and I think it'll be a good chance for everybody to get to really know the Akron Police Department. And it goes across a lot of different topics: training, procedures, and even other aspects that we're involved in, diversion programs, for juveniles, mental health co-responder teams like our scout team. So I'm going to get that together. And then independent of those that are part of our current operations, we had some follow-up, and we're going to have some good discussions about other ones that we just want to try to see, are they a good fit? So, yeah, I'm, super happy to be here. I appreciate all the conversation. You guys all have, it's pretty easy to find me or find my email. And then one last thing, if I could, we are expecting the report from the Police Executive Research Forum anytime, and nobody wants it here more than me, but really open to any suggestions for the group. I'm certainly going to want to go to the ward meetings for council, and I would, if you like, I'll certainly email the group, let all of you know, hey, I'm going to be, Ward 1 this week, I'm going to be a Ward 4 this week. any of you that want to come out and talk about that and engage in that, I just think that would be great as we, try to move that forward as well. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morgan. Any
you.
questions or comments from Mr. Morgan? Or he steps off?
No, I just said thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And so that report is the PERF report that I think some of us, or even most of us, met with them when they were in town. So that report should be coming back within the next week or two. So obviously, everybody's looking forward to seeing that report and seeing their recommendations. So things are moving along. Thank you again, Mr. Morgan. We'll move to Mr. Fennell with the auditor's report. Mr. Fennell?
Thank you, everyone, and appreciate you moving things around a little bit. I don't want to take a lot of time. I will say that during this time period, we looked at about 20, I don't know what, about 23 or so. Yeah, about 23 uses of force incidents. And we did not as an office, we concurred with all 23, but we did have some recommendations that obviously were prepared and pushed forward. But I spent most of my time during this time period looking at the responses that we were receiving from Mr. Morgan, looking at the annual report, preparing for the budget presentation, and also preparing a lot of the information that I'm starting to get back related to officer involved shootings. That's why I was able to say, I anticipate us possibly having 3 to 4 that we'll be able to look at, because I'm starting to get some of the evidence back, some of the body worn back, some of the reporting and other documentation. So I'm putting all that together in preparation for those reviews later this year. But one of the reports I do want to talk about tonight is the responses that we did receive from Mr. Morgan and from the city administration. We received 11, we had 11 cases where we received a response and we received those responses, the final report, on March 9th. So I was able to go through the responses I received from Mr. Morgan and kind of put that in a document that was included in the agenda packet for everyone. And it outlines, that the ones that we had reached consensus on, which were 6 of those, and the ones where we did not reach consensus on, which total 5. And we for the ones that we received consensus on, I'm looking at and have been looking at what are the next steps. It's not enough for the city or the police department to say, okay, I agree with your recommendations. Now we've got to go to the next phase, which is, okay, how do we implement those? How do we monitor to make sure those are implemented, and who's responsible, or what department or what unit within the police department is responsible for implementation? So Mr. Morgan alluded to the conversations that we've had since he's transitioned into his new role. And part of those conversations will be that very thing of, okay, so what's the next steps with those? Now, with respect to those recommendations where we did not reach a consensus, early on, if you remember, I made the decision that, I'm not going to necessarily go back and forth with additional reporting and additional this and that. We've made our recommendations. You've, as a board, have reviewed them. You've approved those recommendations, concurred with them, and we've sent them on for a response. Now, additional conversations may come out of the non-consensus, but I think that those conversations should be generated definitely from the board and from the community. The recommendations stand on what they are, and Ms. Holden spoke to that in her public comments, and I want to publicly thank her for her support and unwavering support, not only for my office and for myself, but for this board. She's been at the forefront and one of the steady people that's been consistent throughout this. Not the only one, but one of them. And so I want to thank her while she's there in the room. And but I do think that over the next few weeks, as a board and as a community, you can review that part of the packet that addresses the response to the recommendations, and specifically looking at what the original recommendations were and the police department's response or the city's response to it, and maybe what the next steps might be, and how do we engage in additional conversation, additional dialogue to maybe move in that direction. So I'll take any questions specific to the responses right now before I move on to the next piece. No questions?
Well, I have one, but I'm not sure. Well, let me just ask this. The last shooting incident with the 18-wheeler, is that in something that you are looking at now, or has anything come?
No, it just happened. I won't look at that for some time.
Okay, because I just had a question about it.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have any comments on it. I haven't received anything
Okay.
other than whatever people have seen publicly.
With respect to the recommendations, for those that were, there was not concurrence with the city, I guess I'm curious, I guess I'm just curious in terms of what next steps are in light of the perf review that we were anticipating. I guess from your perspective, does it make the most sense to hold and pause until we see what's in the use of force review and to identify areas of alignment? Or I'm curious how the two processes interact from your perspective.
From my perspective, the processes will be the same. I don't foresee there being two separate processes. We anticipate recommendations coming from perf. Some of those recommendations may align with recommendations we've already made. I understand that the department, APD, has some knowledge of some recommendations that are forthcoming. So there are already steps in place to begin, to implement. The city has set aside about $500,000 in the upcoming budget to implement those recommendations, whatever the recommendations may be, whether it's training, equipment, whatever. So they've set aside the financial resources for it. Once the perf report comes out, there will be a process for implementing those recommendations. What I'm more so looking at is, from our end, a process to track the implementation. Who's going to be in charge of that implementation? Who's going to be, basically, from an auditor's perspective, who will we be able to look to say, okay, what is the status of this? And someone is going to have to take ownership of its implementation. And I see Mr. Morgan's taking the podium, so I'll pause to allow him to speak.
No, I appreciate it, and I'm sorry, as the day goes on, my voice is getting worse and worse and worse, yeah. But no, great point. I anticipate that we are going to have some form of public-facing dashboard that's going to track any recommendations, track the progress, the implementation progress, and let everybody know where we're at in the process. To Mr. Fennell's point, the department has been making moves for the last year and a half, and a lot of that is going to lay the foundation and align with a lot of the things that are going to be recommended. I just foresee that. There's been some movement, and things take time, but some of those things that have been done over the course of the last year is really going to lay the groundwork for some of these recommendations. And then there's going to be some things that we're really going to have to sit down and assess. But to your point, every intention of having something, hopefully pretty user-friendly that is available to the public so that they can take a look at what we're doing.
Any other questions?
I'm just like I'm naturally just like a process person. So I'm just like, as we're talking, I'm like, what does this look like? Because we're talking about tracking, in essence, tracking the tracker, auditing and I really appreciate the points that you make, because at the end of the day, it's like the role of this board is not necessarily full collaboration, whatever the city decides to do. It's auditing the process, ensuring transparency and accountability. And so like, while I appreciate like a public facing like tracker of whatever recommendations ultimately come out of the perf report, there is the question to say, well, what if the metrics that the city uses to track its own recommendations don't necessarily align with what we're seeing? Or, I mean, there's a reality that, you know, tracking can be self-serving for the purposes of showing, look, we did what we said we're gonna do. So I guess I'm just curious to get, and these are all things not needing to be fleshed out right now, but I guess I'm just curious in terms of like, Mr. Fennell, what does that look like from a board perspective, and where does that need to sit at in terms of, from an organization standpoint? And maybe these are things that you've already thought through, but
Well,
I'm
yes.
just kind of speaking out loud as I'm hearing the dueling dynamics of how best to ensure accountability and accuracy.
Right. And I've been working on our own internal tracker. Okay. Primarily for our recommendations that we make and present, you know, monthly. And then once we get our responses back, tracking first the response, and then those that are where there's consensus. Again, like I said, where is it going to be housed? Who's going to be the shepherd of that recommendation to see it through completion? And then once we get that, let's say it's a policy development. Okay, let's say it's a new policy. So APD has a policy unit. Okay, well now we will track to make sure, okay, this policy is now being created and implemented. And then as part of our regular normal auditing role, we begin to review incidents that start to occur to make sure that they are in alignment with the new policy. You know, and then also looking at the policy that may come out of a recommendation to make sure that it's a fair policy, it's a rigorous policy, it's a policy that will have the intent of both law enforcement and the community, with the community being accountability, transparency, and constitutional policing, and then make sure that in practice it actually works. You know, so we have to give it time. Once the policy is implemented, training is done, and all officers know about it, now we have to give it time to see if in practice it actually works. And part of that, we'll have a good idea if it's going to work, because we'll also have hopefully similar policies from other departments that we can also reference back to see, okay, how did it work here, and is it achieving its goals? So this isn't just accept a recommendation, get a tracker, put it in there, and then somebody check the box. This is an ongoing process. So where the board and the auditor's office will come into play is what we're actually doing right now with the current policies. We'll just roll those into again the work that we do as we continually analyze and review the work that APD does.
Appreciate that thoughtful response. As always, you're a couple steps ahead. So thank you for providing the insight and how you envision the processes existing simultaneously.
Right. Yeah. And I will say, you know, again, with Mr. Morgan's new role and the avenues of communication that we've all created, I think the community and the police department, and maybe even the police union, are going to feel pretty comfortable about this relationship and the process. You know, it's not going to always be, it'll be collaborative without always being in alignment and agreement, because we're going to have some disagreement, but how we work through that and how we evaluate the systems that are in place and the systems that are going to be created is going to be critical. And so that's why, you know, I value the meetings that we've had thus far, as Chair Boyd mentioned, but I also value looking forward. You know, I can see that we're going to make some progress and we're going to do some good work. So I'm encouraged by that.
Mr. Fennell, okay, so you mentioned something that I was going to bring up, the police union. It stands to reason that somewhere along the line, you may get pushback on some of those recommendations and policy implementations from the police union. So I'm wondering, is there going to be some sort of process set up to be able to deal with those issues should we get pushback? I mean, there has to be something, you can't just sit back and say, okay, well, you don't agree, so we're not going to do it. I mean, has that been thought through at all?
Yes. I mean, obviously, we don't have a final plan, but that consideration has been raised, and we've had conversations. Mr. Morgan and I have had conversations as late as yesterday or Tuesday. What's today? Yes, yesterday. I've had long days about that very thing, and the union is going to. It's a partner in this as well. Can't make any policy, any of that, without having the union as a part of that. So whether it's pushback, whether it's some agreement or some consensus, we're going to have to deal with that as we move forward. But I don't foresee a policy change that is going to harm an officer. Okay. I see us moving in the direction of reinforcing the lawful and law enforcement intent of policies, but also enhancing the community's voice in these policies. So I don't see one that's going to be harmful to an officer. Now, as we work through this, it's going to be a relationship building process with the union and the board and my office, quite frankly. And that's just the work that I have to put in and that we're going to have to put in.
Okay. Well, I hope everything works out the way we all want it to.
If I could, Chairman. I think it's important to remember the police officers care about being professionals. And when I was on the fire department, we had run reviews where we would go over paramedic runs, and rather than it being perceived as a punitive thing, which occasionally it would be, there would be repercussions of decisions you made on a run. We were there to know because we wanted to be better paramedics. And I think between Mr. Morgan representing the administration, the chief representing the department, and then the union representing the interests of the guys, and then us as the, again, oversight board, making observations and again, presenting them, and they have the right to agree or disagree. And fortunately, where there's common sense and there's an agreement, we can move forward. And where there's not, part of the tracking, and correct me on this if I'm getting this wrong, Mr. Fennell, but they may choose not to respond or disagree with your observations. But if the problem continues to show up, you're going to continue to point it out. And at that point, Mr. Morgan or the chief will press with things, and maybe the union may be uncomfortable with something, but we are moving and we have to operate in a collaborative relationship, even though this board was born out of a tragedy and there was a real sense of punitive nature. As Leah has said, who's really observed the whole process from the beginning, we're making progress, and that progress, I think, works better when we see each other as on the same team, and we give each other the benefit of the doubt, unless, in particular calls, it's apparent that someone has acted in a way that was inappropriate.
Yeah, well said. Well said, and I agree with you, and that's always been my goal since I've been on this board, is that I can't tell you how many times I've said to different citizens over the last 3 years, we're not here to be against the police. We're not here to hate on the police. We want to have a collaborative, joint effort for the city of Akron with the police. We want to work with them, not against them. And I believe that that was going to happen, and I hope that it does continue to happen. But they've had some changes too in their leadership in the union, so I do hope that, that they feel the same way, because I've always felt that way. They came here and I invited them here to speak, the union president. So, and they came, so we hope for the best.
Yes, and I'm gonna try this again because that's a great segue into the next thing I want to discuss, which is the annual report. Because in the annual report, I do talk about individual versus systemic issues, and so to the point of you know making a recommendation on a specific case where there may not have consensus on that recommendation, if by showing through the data that this is a systemic issue, then you know again having those conversations and bringing those recommendations to the forefront more so as a systemic issue, maybe has a better chance of getting some changes made. Because now you can see it's not just an individual officer doing something. It's not just an individual opinion of an incident, a singular incident. This is a systemic issue that's occurring time and time again. So let's again look at the policies and regulations and procedures that go with that situation and those circumstances to see where some change can be made. So I don't know, we haven't had much conversation about the annual report since it was voted upon and sent out. So, I don't, from the board's perspective, and I haven't gotten much conversation or feedback from the community. So I just wanted to, again, present the annual report now that it's been approved and been sent to the council, to the mayor, to city leadership, police leadership. Mr. Boyd highlighted one of the things in that we had uh, reviewed over 310 incidents, and a handful of those incidents were citizen complaints, but almost 300 of those were use of force incidents by Akron police officers. And again, over 90% we had concurrence, meaning that by policy, by constitutional law, by APD policy, by Ohio state law, they were in compliance. And the review of the use of force was in compliance, meaning that the supervisor that did the review adhered to APD policy in conducting that investigation. And that's a great, that's good because it shows that the policy, the process rather, works. The process being, of having a supervisor or a supervisor in OPSA reviewing it, and then having the chain of command check their work, and then signing off, and then kicking it over to us again to review all of that, plus the systems and processes in place. So overall, 90% of the time, we concurred without any significant recommendations. Now, and I say any significant because almost every incident or every review generated some recommendation, but it was not a recommendation directly related to the incident as a violation or misconduct. It was more so looking at like PERF, looking at International Association Chief of Police and their recommendations, and looking at other law enforcement academic and executive leadership organizations across the country and the recommendations coming out of those to say, oh, can we bring that to Akron? And those are the types of recommendations that, I put together in our monthly recommendations memo and group them into themes and just basically group those into themes based on the cases and incidents that we looked at from one month to the next. And then take those recommendations with now Mr. Morgan, and we can look at systemic issues. So we're not looking at an individual officer. We're looking at thematic issues. We're looking at issues that may not require a policy change. Maybe it requires a training change. Maybe it requires, a high level systems change. But until we identify those things, we don't know. And so that 90% is where the bulk of those recommendations that you see on a month-to-month basis come from. Now, the incidents where I concur with the use of force, that was roughly almost 7%, a little over 6.5% or so. And we concurred with the use of force. Everything's done properly. Everything's done according to the policy. But it may have been something in that wasn't caught, unrelated to the use of force. It may have been something that the supervisor failed to do. Maybe it wasn't the officer. Maybe it was the supervisor. And so with those, I have sent those on to you guys for approval and to vote, and then move those on to the mayor and to the chief to have a formal assessment and a formal response. And some of those responses are what we got back last week from Mr. Morgan. And many of those types of cases were where the consensus was. So they say, yes, supervisor did miss this, or yes, this should be changed to this category and not that. So, and we're still working through that, but so we're still doing what we're supposed to do. We're catching the things so that they can do better reports. And the supervisors can be better supervisors to their officers. And then that last 3% is where we as a board and myself as an office, we did not concur at all with the outcome that APD had presented. And in the bulk of those that came back, APD still, stood on their decision. Okay, that's fine. I pointed out where I see the differences and why I see is different. And like you said, Mr. Krabs, I believe we'll go to the next level. The next level being we'll still monitor to see if this is a reoccurring issue, because then we can identify it as a systemic issue. So the fact that they don't necessarily agree at this point does not negate that there's something there. And we just need to look a little deeper, and we need to continue to follow a little deeper. And again, it may result in a training thing. It's not always a disciplinary thing. It may be that the training that the officers received was not proper or not the best. We don't know. But that's why we build the evidence and build the data for that. So, some of the things, that we're going to continue to look for is the use of force proportionality. One of the first things I pointed out, strikes to the head, head strikes for minor incidents. That's on a national level. That's just not what they do now. And many agencies have restrictions in their policy that limit, head strikes, whether it's with an object or whether it's with your fist or hand, to only lethal force situations because of the propensity to cause serious bodily injury to an individual, from TBIs or head injuries. Juvenile encounters, we see a lot of that with the officers in the schools, the kids on the street. And of course, that is a big community concern. So we're going to continue to monitor that and bring that to the forefront. Restraint safety. One of the things I identified that I will say I've noticed APD is really addressing it when they find it now is the failure of officers to put seatbelts on arrestees, when they transport them. You know, just because a person fights with the police, they throw them in the back of a car and then take them off to the jail. You know, and their mindset to get them out of that situation quickly, but it's still a risk that the city can't afford to accept. And since the policy clearly states that everyone's to be restrained, and what I'm finding now is that officers it's being caught and addressed by the supervisors. So the system's starting to work. This process starting to work, um, which then it goes to enhance supervisory accountability. So now the supervisors are really stepping up. And I want to add that a few weeks ago, I was asked, Ms. Myers and I were both asked to provide some training recommendations, particularly for frontline supervisors, sergeants, new sergeants, but things that we know about and things we've come across that would be helpful for APD to teach their new sergeants to make them better sergeants. So that's, another level of collaboration that may or may not have existed a few years ago. And of course, improved documentation. I'm seeing better reports from the supervisors. So that means that, they are doing, they're lessening the risk to the city by documenting the actions of their officers more thoroughly and adhering to the policies. We talked about our community engagement. We talked about the transparency, regular meetings, publication of reports and summaries. All of I try to make every report that I generate public and available to the public, without going through a bunch of hoops. I work for you guys. So I've got to make these reports transparent and available. And that's the only way we're going to make these changes. If I write all these reports and only 3 people have them, then nothing's going to happen. So I do make them available by posting them on the website and making sure that anyone from the community on down can reach out to me with their comments on any of these reports. So, I would just want to say that the annual report, the preparation for it was more so to provide education as well as facts and data of the work that we've all done over the last year, but to educate the community on why we're doing what we do and sometimes why we don't do what they would like, or what the expectation is and what we can and can't do. So at this point, I'll take any questions from anyone or any comments.
I have a comment. First of all, well done. Thank you. That was very thorough, very, very easy to understand where you're coming from and what you're talking about. So I really appreciate that very, very much. Very well done. My second question is, do we have access to, where can we get access to the report? I mean, is there somewhere we can print it off?
It's on our website.
Is it on the website? That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
If it's on the website.
Yeah, it's on the website. It's been on the website since the day after our last board meeting.
Okay.
And like I said, I included it in the packet, the agenda packet for tonight. And it's also been sent out the day after our last board meeting to our I call it a listserv, but basically the list of emails where we send out our notices to.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you, and thank you for all your hard work on it as well. I appreciate it.
One question, was there anything that wasn't included in the report that you would have liked to, but for whatever reason or not, decided we weren't able to, it just, there are too many loose ends to be like, to include it?
No, I mean, I talked about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Talked about the challenges we've had, talked about the disappointment we had with the FOP contract negotiations. But I also talked about the good stuff, not only that what we've done, but, what APD has done, particularly in the area of mental health and crisis response. We had the presentation from officers that work with the crisis unit and CIT. And that's one of the things in looking at trends and looking at the recommendations that mental health crises cuts all the way across everything. So yes, it's a trend, but it's a trend in all aspects of the other trends. So it's there, and that's why it's really important. The work that APD is doing is important because they recognize that the mental health crisis it impacts so many different levels of runs. We're seeing Ms. Myers and I are seeing uses of force incidents where officers show up to a simple traffic accident, and it involves someone that's in mental health crisis, and they end up having to use a level of force to keep that person from further harm. So you think you're going to a simple fender bender, and then it turns out that you've got someone who's having a mental health crisis. So it's not just the domestic violence or the high stress runs. It's very simple runs that some of these officers are faced with, that they ultimately encounter someone who's having a mental health episode.
I appreciate the detailed response and also the comprehensive packaging and inclusion. It was evident from the report itself, but just was curious about. I know you were very strategic and I applaud you also as well too for having the report prepared as a resource and educational material in advance of the budget hearings. But given that intent, I was just curious if there was anything that we weren't able to include. So thank you again.
Mr. Fennell, as the PERF report comes out, I'm sure Mr. Morgan and the administration is going to determine a way to share that with the public. You guys will meet, I'm sure, before that. Would perhaps our annual report, or is there some way that you may weigh in on things that the PERF says, or would there be problems with that?
You mean for the annual report that we've submitted, or?
We can create a platform. We can go to any local churches or one of the communities, CLC centers, and have the annual report presented to the public. But I'm also struck that in the near future, there's going to be the PERF report, and whatever it says, I imagine there's going to be a fair amount of concurrence. And so I'm just asking, as you meet with Mr. Morgan and the city for the usual meetings, maybe the presentation of those could be in a same forum.
Oh yeah. Well, remember the first name in my title is independent. So to answer your question, I don't foresee going out necessarily and because I don't know what the PERF report's going to say, but I do foresee at some point, maybe as a board or maybe having a special meeting. I don't know. Whatever you guys would decide and like to do, I do think that we should have at least our own meeting, but also collaborate and meet with the city and administration, particularly on areas where there's consensus, But I think at that point, regardless whether it's consensus or not, this report's been paid for by the city. It's going to be brought forth to the community, and in part by some of the recommendations that I made early on to do a use of force review. So there was thoughts to do it. We made public recommendations. So I think once it comes out, we'll have those conversations on how best to provide for the community to have their response. Obviously, they'll want to hear from myself and my office and from you guys what your take is on the report. But then also we want to hear what their take is. We want to hear what their questions and concerns are as we try to, again, move to the next level of implementation and then accountability.
And so PERF is also an independent entity, even though they're working for the city or whatever. Their professionalism is not in question. I guess I'm asking because they're going to present a one-time report. And again, the city will determine how that gets implemented. I'm assuming, because there is standards, that there's going to be overlap between what you regularly see and what they report in their report. And so that's all I was asking, is if there was any problem with the collaboration, that there's a certain impact that you can have when there's agreement with the entities from the city to the chief of police. I mean, he wants a professional department. And so I think the opportunity for us to do some real good things is in the next 6 months to a year.
I would
miss
agree.
that.
I would agree.
So I do want to, outside of the PERF report, I think something that this board needs to consider is having a meeting to present our annual report. I can't remember whether or not, Mr. Costa, is that in the charter? But I think it's something that we need to do. I thought that the slide deck that we had for the budget, while I think it was good, I think that presenting our annual report to the community, I feel like that's probably more of an obligation that we need to take on and do. So that way, I think it's a continuum of educating the community and the public on why oversight is important, why and what we've done. Because here's the thing, like, if we're all being honest, not everybody in the public is tuning in to our meetings. And so I think that, you know, what we need to consider is having an annual report probably sometime before the summer, just to present it. I know that from Ms. Morgan, from what I remember yesterday, is I think the mayor's office is talking about having another town hall or open house or something. I don't know what it's for, but I just remember that coming up. Mr. Frickard said something about it.
There will be a town hall in relation to the budget.
In relation to the budget.
In relation to all the budget hearings that we've been having this week.
Yeah.
Through the balance of this week.
Okay. And so I think, you know, even when it comes to, you know, our annual report, but even us presenting our budget, because I think, to your point, Ms. Fennell, we are independent. And whenever we go to a budget hearing, there are always two budgets that are given. They're given the budget that the city has made, but then they also have, or we have to give them, the budget that we pass as a board. And I think what we need to do as a board is we need to be able to leverage, and I think this was talked about a little bit with Ms. Fennell, we need to be able to leverage the community by letting the community know what we're going to present as a board for a budget, but also the annual report. We have to utilize, I think, our role to not only keep the community informed, but also educate the community on why we need what we need, right? Because some people are going to hear that, you know, we want to increase in the stipend because, oh man, well, what are they just getting that for? Like, we haven't had the platform outside of yesterday to really present that and to explain that to people, but also give people the opportunity to support what it is that we're asking for. And I don't know if we've always done the best job of leveraging the community in that way outside of committee meetings, but I think having our own, if you will, whether we want to call it town hall, open house, or what have you, but I think we need to start thinking about having our own annual meeting as a board, where we present our annual report, where we present a draft of our budget that we voted on as a board. So that way, man, we're educating the community, we're engaging the community, and we're taking whatever questions or comments or concerns our community have. But also the next thing is, it gives us an opportunity to let our community know terms and appointments. Again, 4 of us in the next year and a half, we're coming off this board unless we want a reappointment. So we have to start galvanizing and getting our community ready to step in some of these seats. And so that's just something for us, I think, to continue to talk about and consider. But maybe we need to start, and maybe this starts at a committee level. Maybe it's Ms. Hawkins, Ms. Myers. Maybe it happens in Ms. Elton. Maybe this happens in our community engagement, to where we start thinking about a way that we can engage the community is having almost an annual meeting, presenting some of these things. So, you know, maybe we're looking at sometime in May to give ourselves a little runway, but I think it's something that we need to talk about and put on the agenda for our next meeting. But also, I would like for this to be talked about in community engagement. Ms. Myers and Ms. Hawkins and Ms. Elton, as you all go.
So, in that vein, I think that's an excellent idea. And it sounds to me like, you know, the most optimal way of getting this information out to the community, you want to reach a broad community. You don't want to just anything else. Citizens to engage, even if the media, even if we do.
I just think I want to see this talked about in here at a budget hearing, whether it's the police department, whether it's the fire department. Like yesterday, there was the first 2 to 3 rows were filled with fire department. And I think that we have to learn to